All right, moving right along to good news. Does anyone have any good news for this evening?
I would just like to say the junior high sports is alive and thriving. The 7th grade tennis team beat Ocampo, well, most of the girls did. And then our 7th grade boys had a good showing at Stafford, and the 8th grade boys had a tough showing, real close game. I think both the girls junior high teams won as well. So excited for all the things happening at the junior high and the high school. I know our girls had a deep run in the playoffs, and our boys did well. So excited to see all the athletic success on top of the academic success that we hear about every month. So
I'd like to draw attention to, I know Tenny Homes had their sneaker ball, and it's always a huge success. Thank you to your team and your group that put that on. I know it's a lot of work, and the parents love it, and the community talks about it. So it is a great parent involvement thing for us. So I appreciate all the efforts and everybody getting together.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I want to just mention real quick, I know that the girls soccer this year didn't go as far as they wanted to go. They had bigger ambitions. Not that they didn't do good this year, they did. They had bigger ambitions than what they ended on. And these seniors that were on this team last year were kind of part of that group that's really started a great tradition here at Bay City, where they've got girls underneath them that they've helped bring up and everything. So this group of graduating seniors from the girls soccer and the whole soccer team, especially those seniors, that really kind of stepped up, 4 years ago like that. I think I just deserve a little bit of recognition, saying thank you. We appreciate you. We enjoy the ride.
Yeah, not only did they lead on the soccer field, they also led on the academic side.
Yes.
3 of those ladies were on the top 10 for the class that is graduating in May. So that is incredible.
Awesome.
Display of what Bay City graduate is and what is happening. We have leaders on the field as well as in the classroom. So great job.
Got a couple real quick, really excited, and I have to temper this, Mr. Townsend, want to make sure I check this, but Mr. Townsend submitted our application for the teacher incentive allotment recently, and that's just the application, but knowing all of the feedback that, and input, I should say, that went into that, with administration, the TIA committee, we're very confident that's going to be coming our way soon, and that is going to be a huge shot in the arm of the teacher retention and recruitment. That is substantial funding that could come to the district and not hit the local tax roll or the taxpayer. So it's an extra bucket of money there that we know our teachers deserve. And we've already heard some of them doing the data crunch and seeing where they may line up. So look forward to them experiencing this huge incentive. Also, just I mentioned the campus. Today was another a big day for testing, as it's statewide, and a few years ago they said this thing has to be 100% online, and so you worry about infrastructure. And I know the principals were going for paper, and now it's online. And I was mentioning to David DeBrock, it was so nice not to talk to David today, because that means everything went awesome, and it will be one more bragging point for David. We're excited. So we had a major test go today. The network held up, did a great job, as I was just saying, but it's just the beginning. David, also, if you haven't been to a recent meeting, Mr. DeBrock is leading the way to bringing in even more internet speed into the district. The way I say it, on a successful day like today, imagine that as being one lane on the highway. When he's done, hopefully, this summer we'll have it installed, and we'll go from all the success we had today, we'll go from 1 lane to 10 lanes. And I know that sounds kind of odd, but just the flow of data and information that can fly around the system. And conservatively speaking, it's probably about 95% paid other than local tax rolls. So always looking for savings, always looking for teacher retention, and that's just going to be a huge tool for instructions, because so much now depends on internet service. And almost 30 years of education, I've never had it. I've always wanted it. So David, thank you for your hard work and putting in the applications and ensuring we could secure that funding. And again, conservatively speaking, probably 95% will not come out of from our taxpayers.
Great. Anybody else? All moving on to our celebration of excellence. Tonight, we get to honor our state powerlifting qualifiers that did a fantastic job. So Ms. Mosher, thank you for bringing them forward, and thank y'all for all your work.
So joining us is Linda Smith, our girls coordinator, and she's going to share each of the accolades of all 5 of the students that we are recognizing, 3 of which are present tonight. I enlarged the text on her phone.
Okay, tonight, Patterson is the first ever 105 World State Champion, meaning she lifted with no equipment. Cam
She's not.
placed in the top 10 in the Royal 198. Donna Todd fourth state in his first.
Yes, she's here.
She's state champion.
She was in the top 10.
She's top 10, okay.
Yes.
Donna Todd fourth place at state in the first year at powerlifting. First year. PR in squat and bench. Placed in 10th in the top 10. And Coach Arneson, Ron Arneson is the head powerlifting coach, and Sierra Bernard is the assistant powerlifter.
Ready? Congratulations.
Thank you. We love getting to see the different things that kids are doing, and that takes a lot of work to get to that point. So congratulations to those coaches and those students. All right, moving on to our next item of business. We have audience with patrons. We have 2 people signed up. Our first is Charlie Allison.
Can we kind of go up together and just use maybe only 3 minutes?
Sure.
Sure.
Come on up. So Charlie and Joe, we go together.
It's a real opportunity for us to have the opportunity to tell you what we do and who we are. First of all, we want to do this. My wife Linda, she was the school board for how many years?
22.
22. We have Elena and Ava and Arandi. Oh, this is a favorite commitment. Thank you. Just don't know it down. Okay. So, first thing, and we need to clarify, we are not a TPA. And I've been trying to communicate that. We are an insurance broker who specializes in employee benefits. Big difference. TPA provides administrative service and they tag along insurance. Why is this important? Well, first of all, I was hired under a mandate school, I guess it's been 17 years ago, when they were going to no longer pay for most of the benefits. Basically, they were covered life and health. They have a search to hire a broker to find somebody who could make sure that the employee's money was well spent, they were getting paid for it. I was selected. Now, a little bit about how this could pay off. I self-servingly say I am a registered employee benefit consultant. I'm a registered health underwriter, a certified financial planner. I got some more designations, but the big thing is this. There's a pursuit of knowledge, expertise, so that we can make sure BCISD employees get the best benefits for the public. Now, perfect example, Rick may remember there was a time when Bay City looked at First Financial. This time they said, well, Charlie, look over the benefits. I pointed out to them the long-term disability that I had in place was paid at 65. The long-term disability they were offering was for 5 years. So somebody gets disabled at 50, they got 5 years of coverage. I can tell you this, Mr. Superintendent, we paid out millions of dollars that would not have been paid out to Bay City ISD employees if the change had been made. So, the next thing to keep in mind is this. There's some question about, us transitioning. That, we partnered with a broker called a GA broker, called MGM, okay? On 1/17, I get an email from them stating that as of 9/1/2024, they were getting out of the GA business. It's a trend in the industry. Cut down on middle guy. They go on to say that Allison benefits as a broker being paid, compensation for being a broker, and communication with the benefits directly. Also goes on further to say that you'll have direct communication with the hub. I just heard, and again, a lot of this is not being straightforward. I like doing business where you look a guy that I know do it. And then we could make the transition. Months ago, I confirmed with every carrier that there was no increase and that they would welcome the opportunity for us to be broker rep. Okay? Every carrier. All it required was a signature, paper documentation of the school that we have been attempting to get signed. So, as of today, the benefit hub in place, no increase, ready to go. Flex spending account, we paid for it. Enroll, ready to go. Cobra, we paid for it, ready to go. Every benefit that we offer has no increase. We're ready to roll. All it needs is a signature or proceed. Also heard, not straightforward, that maybe they had an opportunity to have less expensive benefits. Guys, y'all know, what does less expensive mean? Is it the same coverage for less of a price, or is it less coverage for less expensive product? What should happen, and I hope to happen, been doing this for 29 years, 17 was a school, that there would be some trust to go, hey, Charlie, would you look this over? We have another option here. What can y'all do for us? So, which, he doesn't sound, we got, I guess I'm.
You got all our time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right, I know you're going.
Anyway.
I just want to close with in the last seconds that we have gone above and beyond the call of duty. I functioned as HR when Kelly was on leave. We are doing things that nobody else would have done. So we have given our hearts and souls to this account, and just were completely left in the dark on purpose. It was purposeful. Meeting requests denied, no responses, and we weren't given the opportunity to go market. So here's what I believe in. I was talking with some, and we were saying that this would affect the renewal. MGM not being in place has zero effect on the renewal. The renewal goes forward as planned. Everything's the same, just no MGM.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate years of business, whatever happens. We support you guys and whatever's going. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. All right, moving to the next item is our LSG portion of our meeting. Hello, sir, how are you?
Good evening, I'm doing well.
Good, welcome, thank you for driving in tonight.
Yes, it's good to be here always. So I'll turn your attention to our time tracker for last month's meeting to start with. It's in your blue folder. pop it up on the screen, but I don't think anybody can see it because it's pretty small. But, when you look at last month's meeting, it was 128 minutes long. And that doesn't include any closed session. 38 of those minutes were spent on other things other than student outcomes. But 90 minutes were spent on student outcome related items. That's excellent. So that was 70.31% of your time as a board is focused on the students and their outcomes. That's outstanding. You'll notice that you had 5 board members present, 2 were absent. That's 71.43% attendance. You had 9 items on the consent agenda, none got pulled. And that's a trend that I'm seeing with BCISD and some of our other districts as well. And what it requires is better preparation on your part, which we're seeing. And that way you get your questions answered ahead of time, you get that information ahead of time, and then you move forward and do those things. You had 2 other items on the agenda. We discussed 2 goals and 6 goal progress measures last month. So that kind of gives you an idea of last month's meeting. Now for this month, what we're going to do, we had a planning meeting. And one of the things that Dr. Mack has asked the principals to do is to really focus on the Lone Star government's goals in their presentations that you have initiated and that you want to get feedback on how the students are doing. So tonight, when you look at goal number 5, that has to do with raising the student scores at 9th grade English. And you know, the 9th and 10th grade English are some challenging years for students. And so we have 3 goal progress measures for that. And they kind of go in reverse order. 5.1 deals with the 9th grade students raising their scores. 5.2 is the 8th grade students. And then 5.3 is your 5th grade students. And they're trying to follow that 5th grade cohort up. So there was some thinking behind that. The principals have some design and trying to really pull the whole program up. So I'm excited about that. So what we're going to do is kind of reverse order. If you look in your folder, you find your monitoring report, which by the way, I put a copy of it over there on the wall. So I have that in mind. And we're going to have Mrs. Flores come up first, and she's going to cover 5.3. That deals with this RLA, reading language arts scores for 5th grade. Pull up the monitoring report.
Everyone. As Mr. Williams said, we are trying to monitor and track this group of 5th graders all the way up to the high school. So on page 26 for me, and what you all see up there, we currently have for April of 2024 the overall percent of 5th grade RLA students that score meets grade level or above on the CBA assessments will increase from 36% in September of 2023 to 39% by August of 2024. So we are currently at 62% for all, 63% for Hispanic, 67% for white, 50% for ED, 29% for SPED, 43% for African American, and 62% from EDs. As you can see, we've been a significant growth in all of those areas. And this is in our CBA, the last CBA that we took in April this month.
So this is the CBA, right? It's the 6 weeks or how many ever weeks. It's not cumulative, it's snapshot.
Right, but by this point, we've taught all of our genres.
Okay.
So then based on the genre that they picked, or if it was a multi-genre, then those questions reflect the genre, and everything has been taught by now.
Do you feel like this CBA is more indicative of their progress versus the specific one?
Yeah, especially because, fifth grade just took their STAR, the reading STAR test last week. And 20 days, prior to the STAR test, we were, doing STAR intense, tutoring, programs, so yes, it's
Some great growth. Great job.
Your questions that you're asking on that one, are they spiraling some questions from the previous?
from previous, in reading is by genre, so by now we've taught all our genres. I would not be able to tell you what specific genre was tested in this one, or if it was a multi-class genre. So were questions spiraled? I will say yes, questions were spiraled. We try to use most rigorous questions, leading up to the test. Get a more, better picture of.
The difference between this CBA and the STAR that you took, is that another big jump in difficulty or the better value?
Not in difficulty, there is a significant difference in the amount of stories.
Okay,
Yeah,
so they'll start to get wore out.
in the real test,
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
So if we were to have, if this is a cross-genre, CBA, then it has 2 stories. If it's a single CBA, then it only has 1 story. Versus the real test has from 5 to 7 stories.
Any other questions? Right, great, thank you. We appreciate you.
To our goal progress measure 5.2, this is looking at the behavior.
Folder with, that's not extra data, the ones that want here, it's just a, work samples on that. I do have to apologize that my yellow line on my goal got moved down a little bit, but I was making some additional information on here, so it should be at, for last year, we're at 47% for weeks or above, and our goal is 50 for this year. So the yellow line should be a little bit more, so we're not as close as we want to be at this particular point, but we're headed in the right direction. So November, information was on CPA number 2. Our April data that's in there is our benchmark information, which is what we took right before spring break. What I did on the graph part, I'll get to that in a minute, but our data right now will show that overall we were at 34 in November, we're 38 now in April. Hispanics 41, white 49, and economically disadvantaged 27. SPED we're at 0, and this is meets, not just passing. We have kids that are passing it, but not at that meets level yet for SPED. 2 or more races is still at 0, African American 13, and our emerging bilinguals are at 34. I did similar to what I did before at math, for 6th grade math on that. These are the CPAs for our assessments up until this point prior to STAR. So like Ms. Flores had mentioned, our STAR reading was April 10th. So the 15 days prior to that were what we call our STAR blitz, which is basically right after we got back from spring break. So the benchmark was our last assessment before actual STAR. So you can see in CPA 1, what I added on the bottom of it there too, because that was a conversation we had last time, or it was a conversation that was held last time. The first CPA was over narrative, nonfiction, and fiction. So that was, and you can see there, I mean, that was the first CPA of the year, first 6 weeks, 77% at meets. Unit 2, which is poetry and drama, that's what you see there, November 23rd information. Our third CPA was a semester exam on informational text. So we dropped down a little bit on that for the meets, and then we dropped down a little bit more for CPA 4, which is argumentative text. And then we did our benchmark, which was last year's release STAR. It's the exact one that took online. So you can see we actually went up to 38%. So it's actually our highest out of all the assessments we've given so far. That was a full-blown release STAR. The information that I included on there that we have is our benchmarks were administered on the 27th. We did vertical content team for PLCs, and we targeted student groups in Panther time and for our Saturday academy session for our emerging bilinguals. We've been working with our Region 3 TL representative and reviewing and discussing student writing samples. We use IXL of the ELR part of it. They're actually assigning specific skills to the certain teams that they're teaching. And it's actually also part of our curriculum guides as well too. Our campus district writing structure, I know Ms. Motherford mentioned it last time too, was race. But one of the things that we did here in January is we had professional development and we had a spelling and vampire come in and do cross-curricular writing. So we're incorporating that across all the different main contents. That was a January staff development. And so we have a condensed version of RACE, one that she presented, which was ACE, but we kind of converted it to ACE. And I'll show you a sample of that here in just a moment. And then I have the data when we had our start. So I know it looks like it's a lot in the folder, but I know the conversation was about difference of CPA semester exams and what a STAR release is. So the first one that you have, this is actually CPA number 2. So this is November's data. These are the number of questions they have on it. Since it's a CPA, they're not writing an essay, but they do have a short constructive response on the back page. You can see an example of students' response. And it is done online. The next one that you see is the semester exam. So it is longer than regular CPA. They do have, they did not do an essay on this because of the time of getting the grades back for the semester grades, that we're just not able to grade almost 300 essays. By Friday afternoon, you have an exam Friday morning. But you can see the number of stories that they do increase, like the scores I mentioned earlier on that, the type of questions and the writing and everything that they're actually asked on the semester exam. So this is CPA 3, which is longer because it's a semester exam. The last one that you have in there, writing sample or testing sample, this is their benchmark. So this is what their actual benchmark is. And when we took the STAR assessment on the 10th, that was probably one of the longest days. I don't have both my 8th grade ER teachers here, and we were testing pretty much right up until 3 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken. They took their time, which is great, because you can see that this is what it was last year, and I included the writing samples on the back too, like the back, the last 2 of them are full essays. So these are using the strategies they have in place, and I think I have one short response one as well too. And so you can see the difference between the short constructive response versus the actual essay. This was the next one is RACE, which are writing strategies. So this is what we're using as a district. The Wake Explorers is using it as well at the elementary level. This is what the high school is using too, and so we're using an ELAR because this is for a longer constructive response. So this is your essay. So for our science, social studies, other content, we have this last page is what we're using, how we tie it into ACE. So it's basically without misstating expression. The whole campus was there for that training, and our ELAR teachers were there as well too, even though it was for the other content areas, but now they know what the other content areas are using as well. So as a campus, we've got it all across the board. And then the last one that you'll see is just the writing sample from science. So this is what 7th grade science did, using those strategies. And it's actually pretty awesome if you see what they're writing. This was on a energy pyramid. So this was the prompt for it, and these were examples that they had, so you can see what we're doing across curriculum. So that's what I got.
I have a question about, just the increase, clearly as you go on the testing, stamina needs to grow. What happens in the day-to-day, what's going on in the day-to-day to increase that stamina? Because they're not, to some extent, they're not getting them, you give them this and it's,
Yes.
to make sure that they're increasing in that, and it's not just a flow and they're exhausted by the end, so they're just bubbling, and it's not bubbling in these days.
The first 2 are CPAs, which are lower on that. So then we have that semester exam, which we did have the increased time to take it. I do know that they are writing in the classroom, but it's not in a block chunk of time. So they are working on it, it's over periods. When we do our interims, that's when we do shut it down like we do for STAR. So the interim is one that gives them that little bit of taste of how long it could be, but it's still not as long as actual STAR. So when we did 2 benchmarks, it gave them more of an idea, but then you're shutting it down for that testing, yes. So in between the CPAs, when we did it, ELAR did 2 interims. So they had the CPAs plus 2 interims plus the benchmark and 4 STAR.
And I know the older they get,
Yeah.
easier it becomes with the stamina part, just having longer tests with this.
It's still
Trying to still get it in to where they're having those extended periods where they're really having to, okay, just curious about that. Great, thank you. Any other questions?
I don't remember where, it's one of your letters or one of the campus letters or maybe one type, but I remember reading something about the essays are being graded by AI and the pass
graded by our teachers on that, but they have been to the training where they were talking about the AI. I don't know if you guys want to talk a little bit about the conference.
They haven't really told us much. We just know that AI is doing it, but we don't really know much about the details.
I know, this is, some of my sixth grade ELR teachers, that they're looking for specific words, so like when you're restating, what they're asking for in the prompt, they're looking for things like that. So if you're not even close to the prompt, then you're not gonna get credit for it, so they're looking for certain actual text evidence is huge, that's the one thing I know that we've got actually focused on, is if that question is asking you that, you're restating, you're citing the textual evidence on it, so then they can see that, get that connection.
And I'm not a proponent for AI, but all the information that you're seeing on Facebook is one-sided. The hot zero occurrence, the program actually triggers an adult to grade those. Anything that's out of the ordinary, if the question was answered but somehow got a zero, it flags it automatically to get graded by somebody. And then 10% of all of the other ones are spot checked and graded in certain ones. So there's a lot that goes into it. Again, I'm not saying it's the latest and greatest, but just be careful what you read on Facebook from individuals who are against it. They'll only show you one side of the story.
Oh, wait, it'll be
But happy to hear
interesting.
you guys graded those by hand.
Yes. We need to see what the results are for this year too, so that'll give us a lot of information too.
So the actual star that we're doing this year, is it being graded by?
Our star, yes, but not what we've done.
Right.
But I will say, even my freshman that came home after taking the EOC today, she said, Mom, as long as, and I said, how'd you do it? She said, I don't know, but I did learn afterwards that it's graded by AI. She said, but it's really not that big of a deal, because when I went to the TSI, they told me AI is gonna be grading this, and this is what you need to do, and it was basically this. So they're teaching them the strategies to have what the essays need for a good essay, but they're giving them something tangible to say, okay, this, and she was like, I did this, and she could name it all off. And I thought, okay. So.
And you as a parent have the right to request a person grade your star test after it comes back to you.
Yeah. So. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You guys have some great questions. I
Thank
really
you.
proud of that. We're
Thank you,
gonna go
ladies, for
to
coming.
5.1 now, and this is actual ninth grade students in English 1, so we'll hear from somebody.
So as Ms. Westmoreland said, our English 1 students did test today, 70-ish questions on their assessment. Mr. Driver, who's dual credit teacher, came back and he sighed. He said, oh my gosh. I'm so glad it was them and not me, but they did work really hard. We saw the strategies on paper. So the teachers have worked really hard to share the instructional strategies as well. Our English team taught our campus how to use the racist strategy so that they could develop cross-curricular prompts. There's some great examples of them writing it in art class, in shop class, in our theater classes, and in our science and social studies classes. So as Jill stated, it's really important as we're thinking about the involvement of the scoring. We've been working with it in TSI for a really long time, and our teachers who work with TSI really worked hard to kind of develop what was intentionally designed initially for our EB students. So we have a lot of emergent bilingual students. That's one of our student populations that we have targeted. And as I share the data, thinking about those students, it is kind of like putting some training wheels on for them to have the framework for how to respond, especially because they're having to do a lot of translation. So I do want to share first that on the back of this that I handed you, there is a slight update to the data table. Tony and I talked in our data meeting when we met. I shared with him that the December data was our benchmark, as Rosie described for hers. And then April, when we met, it was like the end of March, and our teachers had not given CBA number 5 until the first week of April. So I wanted to be intentional about sharing that as well, because we used the benchmark in the data discussions that we had with DBI to identify what areas were we going to focus on. And the next opportunity really for us to see how that went was in the next assessment. So I did add a line down there for you to see what I call now April, and the original April that was in your board book, I renamed to February, because that's actually when the assessment was given. So We're learning things with this new goal about the appropriate times for us to record data and thinking about that in our units. So just to share with you, initially at December, which was new from your November data, we did have a little bit of growth, so from 62% of all to 63% of all. And then in February, it was a slight decline, and I want to talk about that here in a minute because it was a decline pretty much across the board. So 59% for all students, 58% for Hispanic, 79% for white. Our economically disadvantaged went down to 55. Our special ed went to 0. Again, as for masters, then our two races, 40%, African American 44%, and emergent bilingual 45%. So some of the things this team and I talked about was when we were testing and what type of genres we were testing. Our more challenging genres were occurring at that time. And so we had to implement some strategies for spiraling, as Tony talked about, some of the things that we had done before, and applying some of those things to new learning. We have been already having lasso framework training with Mr. Townsend, the grant that we got, so vertical alignment for ELA teachers across the district. And an aha moment in our training last week was related to how the curriculum changed from us doing thematic units that included multiple genres all the time to specific genre units. And when you have a more challenging genre like poetry that students don't really buy into all the time, then you have a little bit less success. I wanted to share with you guys though that on the back, you will see in the overall scores piece, it's really hard for us to think about not just our demographics, but where are we really seeing our baseline? When you look at the interim assessment, I do want you to note, and maybe put a star next to that, this goal is for first-time testers. So that's the kids who are taking CBAs all the time. But the interim assessment was given to all English 1 students at Bay City High School, purposefully to prepare them for the real exam of having, like Jill talked about, to have to go the full stamina of doing the full exam again. But then also to see how they would how we would take a hit as a campus for our retesters that we still hold on to, and for us to be able to compare that to what the students were getting for CBAs. So you're going to see that the average student score on the interim was a 59, which was still the same as the February data, which was about a 59 for the students that we had in our CBAs. So that was kind of an aha for us too, that these same students that when they took this test, with or without any instruction, because they had it previous year, they're already in English 2 now, they're not in English 1 anymore, but it was still an area that they struggled. But in spite of the fact that they're not getting tier 1 instruction in the content, they are some of our English 2 students, and our English 2 teachers are using the same writing strategy, they're still using the same strategies for close reading, and it was really nice and refreshing to see that we didn't take as much of a hit this time around to include all of those testers. Then CBA 5, our average test score is now 63. So that's pretty awesome to think about that they're averaging at about a 63% correct on the test, and only 42% is required for passing. And for us to get the NEETS mark, it's only 56%. So on a whole, as an average, we're still seeing those, and that was important for us to share. I also just noted successes that we had similar to Rosie. We're doing the DDI, so we had very successful data-driven instruction planning meetings. Really worked hard to introduce those new question types. In fact, what's really refreshing to look at is that the students, they're doing like true false now instead of multiple choice. They're doing inline text choice, where there's like a drop-down box and you choose which of these words should really go in this sentence. And students are scoring between 70 and 80% correct on those new test items. I think it's refreshing because it's the real way we teach. Not everything is a multiple choice option. And then of course, those new test items also include our open-ended responses, and students did have quite a bit of improvement. On the back, you'll see a pie graph. The green is the 2s. You need 2s to have a passing mastery score of short answer responses. And so we went originally on the CBA number 4 that you saw from students about 42%, and then we increased that to 53%. That is when we did our campus-wide push for races for all cross-curricular approaches. So the teachers taught it at our PD in February, and then we rolled it out with all the other teachers doing some practice in their classrooms. So then they were reaping the benefits of it in English because the students were just getting a little bit more consistency with those responses. The other thing, success-wise, really was that as a result of that, we started being able to focus a little bit more on the revising and editing, the intricacies of writing, so that we weren't having to do whole instruction all the time. We could pause and say, okay, now let's talk about the way that you wrote this sentence. So we could reframe some of their syntax, some of their vocabulary. And so the teachers really worked intentionally with trying to do some of the finite things, when a lot of times it's constantly having to do the big picture stuff. But because the big picture stuff was happening across campus, they could do some of the little things. We did have some challenges. I do want to share, you noticed the drop in special education. We had some staffing challenges on our campus, and we've had some long-term subs in placement for our special populations for the inclusion role. We were able to do some flipping of that around, and so it's really nice to see that we got that back up to 10% of the meets level. Really still all of our students, when you change staff, they're having to adjust to those things. The consistency has been our English 1 team. So they've worked really hard to make sure that in spite of those changes, they made some adjustments too. So you'll notice on some of our adjustments that even some of the tutoring changed, and a good example, Coach Bernard is not here today, but when her inclusion teacher wasn't there, she was doing the special education small groups, and the long-term sub was doing the whole group instruction, or they would take turns with that so that it wasn't that the students were being slided without the extra support. In addition to that, once we did our benchmarks, first semester homeroom was designed to do intervention for the retesters because they tested in December. Second semester homeroom was designed for us to identify first-time testers that needed the extra push, whether it was for them to get the extra push to pass or to go from approaches to meets or from meets to masters. So there were quite a few students that were funneled into those tutoring groups, and that was really intentionally designed by the teachers, knowing the students, knowing what their areas of weakness were. Then in addition to that, on the back, you will see that we also worked really hard to identify really just who those students are. I challenged the teachers to say, okay, so who are your economically disadvantaged students? Mark them on your chart so that when you're looking at that data, you're calling them by name. And so you will see the growth there. So from all students, 59 to 71, and then from Hispanic, 58 to 71, which is a pretty good reflection because the majority of our students are Hispanic. White students, 79 to 80, economic disadvantage, 55 to 62, special ed from 0 to 10, our two races from 40 to 60%, African American 44 to 53, and our emergent bilingual from 45 to 66. So something particularly to share about our emergent bilingual students, you'll notice that when we started at the beginning of the year from their first assessment, they were 53% for meets. That's a lot to think about. It's a meets standard, and really we had been struggling with 30% or below, even for passing 2 years ago, just for the basic approaches level. The change really was our emergent bilingual strategies for academic language, the use of races across campus. Our ELAR teachers did also present at the state conference a session on that, and they are vying for a spot at our Title III conference as well. So I'm going to brag on them a little bit for sharing their strategies across the state. Any questions?
Just to kind of bring it all together, some things were mentioned I'm really excited about, Mr. Townsend, if you'd like or not, just how it all comes together. We heard of the term vertical alignment. We were blessed to get the LASSO grant in order to fund some of this vertical alignment work. Mr. Townsend, you want to share just anything at all or anyone that participated and what that's about and how it's really bringing it all together?
No, absolutely. The LASSO grant has a number of things that you can apply for within it. And really BCISD, literacy and numeracy is the 4 goals. And literacy has been a topic of conversation and a focus for us from pre-K all the way through 12. And so the opportunity to apply for the grant and framing out the literacy framework for the district is what we applied for, and that's what we started engaging in on the 12th. And really, we've talked about vertical alignment in the district, but how to make that happen in a meaningful way has not taken place yet. And I think that we could attest from that first meeting that the dialogue and that process of the training that we received on that first day on the 12th It was really special to me to witness that happening from all of the teachers across the districts and ELAR, representatives from every single grade level on every single campus, and to begin to frame out, what does good instruction look like in literacy? What do we hold dear at Bay City? What are our goals for that? How do we make that happen? And then as we go forward, we're framing out that piece, and then what we need in order to accomplish that goal? And if not, what do we need to do? And then what is our action plan to actually put that in place and share that with all the other teachers and make that part of an everyday routine? So I don't know, Ms. Mosier, do you guys want to speak to it? And
well, we do have a couple of English teachers here. I don't
Yes.
know if they had any.
I know Ms. Morrison, you were
feelings
there.
about the impact, so.
It was just like we just talking about, just being able to have that vertical alignment, to hear how some of the things that, the junior high does and have them hear how it's affecting us in certain situations and really sharing ideas and coming together. I think it was a really great experience. I'm excited for it and to be able to map out like those expectations across.
And I will say, Mr. Townsend started by saying, oh my gosh, to be in a room with all these English teachers. It was, right? So, of course, I was an English teacher and having been away from it for about the last 9 years, not being really in the direct teach moment, but working, English has been my team for quite some time to support them. I thought it was really nice to be able to see that they felt validated by having an opportunity for their input. And I remembered as an English teacher joining this district, I feel I can say that now because a few people have faded out. It's not like they're gonna hurt anybody's feelings. But I came in saying, I can't believe we don't have vertical alignment here. There were exclusive trainings to every campus, and there was no time. And when I say no time, I mean 0 time for us to have an opportunity. And anytime a teacher mentioned it, it was like, oh, no, that's probably not something that we should do. Because there was worry about getting English teachers in a room together and what would happen. But all I can say is every time I've been in a room with English teachers, great things have really happened. And I started to see some of those things really evolve where they felt confident in what they were doing in their practice, but also felt brave to have discussions with their colleagues that are across campuses, but also in front of administrators, and felt like that they could say those things and be validated. And it started some things to evolve, to see some changes that I think we will probably see develop through the framework. And had we just come in and said, oh, I think we should do this differently, it would not have been well received. And we probably would not have made the same suggestion as what the English teachers are making now, because they are there and practicing it every day. So I'll tell these two here, I just appreciate the vocal feedback that they gave and their willingness to be a part of that experience. Ms. Morrison, as the team leader, will, field some of the feedback from the rest of her team and bring it back to those meetings, and every other campus representative will as well. And it'll give us an opportunity to really make some improvements. This goal started our campus at, we can do this, but I think also this goal is also a thread that we can share across all campuses for everybody to feel like that there is something valid. And I will speak also to the fact that, we talked about this at the very beginning, Tony and I and Mr. Townsend, why we set the numbers where we set them. We still don't know what STAR is going to do. And so to mention the AI, we don't know what the impact of that really is going to be. I formerly was a grader of short answer responses on the STAR test when they initially were part of it. They took those away and now they brought them back. And when I was a scorer, and then I was also a scoring leader that was the back reader that they would get fed to if there was a disagreement in those. So there is a system that's in place for that, but we don't know really what the impact of AI scoring our assessments is really going to be, considering that we have a number of short answer responses and an essay that's on the test. And we truly are scoring our own. So we don't know what that impact is going to be, and we also didn't know if they were going to move the target on us. So just a reminder that last year, the passing standard had been around 56%. They lowered it down to 42%, adding all of the new items that are there, with the expectation that there's going to be a cone of uncertainty, like the hurricane that's coming, to tell you where it might land for where they're going to decide. And honestly, so if anybody doesn't know this, because I've also been a part of the data analysis with DEA, they look at the questions after they have been tested, and then they decide where they're setting the standard. So they do not set it before we give the test. It is after the fact that they decide. Really important for us to do that. Interim assessment, because I feel like last year's interim assessment drove them to some of the decisions that they made to back off a little bit. So we reluctantly did the interim assessment because it takes a lot of our instructional time, but I shared with the teachers that I really felt like we really need to continue to do that, because when we gave the interim assessment, and I shared that with y'all, we have a shorter version of what the STAR test is, but it is also a test that the students take and they're given difficulty questions based on how they perform. So it is similar to taking the TSI. If you miss a question, then you get an easier question, and then you get a question right, then you get a harder question. Not every student took the same test during the interim because they were vetting some of those things. From that, they make the decisions about what they're putting on the real test, and then from the real test and how we perform, they will set the standard. So I think that's something to keep in mind, that it still is a fluctuating standard, and I call it a moving target for what we're going to have to measure up to.
Well, I don't know if you caught some of this, Maryland, but Mr. Townsend and I, it was midway through that training for vertical alignment. Great questions. There's something special about teachers and administrators taking a break, and yet, hey, this changes some dynamics in how we're going to teach this. And talking about with vertical alignment, we have the lesson frameworks. And to reiterate for our teachers and for everyone, curriculum is live and it will be shaped by you all. And so the framework part of it is simply a guaranteed and viable place for now and in the future for teachers to come in and have those resources. But I want to thank y'all for those conversations and to let you know that Mr. Townsend and I absolutely talked about the buzz that came out of that training. And then we're very proud of all this is part of a comprehensive curriculum management plan that we're building. You know, it's not built in a day, but anyone who would like to go online to our board policy, you have EH Local, and I also would encourage anyone to see how many other districts in Texas have EH Local. EH Local is codified commitment to guaranteed and viable curriculum. And in there, you will also find the flexibility of specifically working with Mr. Townsend's position and knowing that curriculum's dynamic, that we will never be the lock, stock, lockdown. As you know, we have part of that curriculum is the tightly held and the loosely held, that we can never take away the power of the teacher to meet the needs of their students, because you're with them every day. And so that was something Mr. Townsend brought to me. And really the final piece that I have to say, purposeful in presentation today, and alignment of ELARD as a former campus testing coordinator. ELARD has been tough for years. And so the intentionality, for lack of a better term, we're talking about 5th grade today, we're talking about middle school, we're talking about high school. So vertical alignment, framework for the curriculum, and this LSG goals where we're checking on a regular basis through our board meetings that we're all on the same page. And then the last piece, we're actually extending those partnerships. The secondary folks would probably be surprised to hear this. There's a new opportunity for addressing early childhood literacy and numeracy. So you guys do such a phenomenal job in this interim assessment, seeing there, and that's the first thing I zeroed in. We're at the meets level as it matched up there. But early child, that means you've done a great job from when they come in, and our elementary teachers do a super job, because kinder readiness means they've had virtually no instruction. They've arrived on our doorstep, and kinder readiness is at about 18%. And that's low, right? That's, yes, and you should feel like, wow, you bring them a long way. So you do. And it starts with the elementary with purposeful strategies, but we're about to add a new dynamic. And so we're actively right now in the process of negotiating with our daycares. There's a new initiative from the state which will bring increased funding to the district. It's called Pre-K Partnerships. And with the Pre-K Partnerships, we're looking to help everybody. But they're for pre-Ks, I know there's 2 in our community that have this special certification, and we hope all of our daycares get it. because of those two daycares, I won't announce it here because we're in the midst of hopefully partnering with them. The bonus to them in partnering with us is $25,000 that they can put towards their facility. And so that's just another layer. And again, we will not, it's called Texas Rising Star Certification. And so we're hoping to facilitate every daycare to get that so they can all be supported through this. But those negotiations are going on right now, and I hope that help is on the way. You're already doing a great job, and I think making that contact with our kids at the earliest levels, our parent liaisons have been working hard. We had a kinder roundup, pre-K roundup. Staff did that over the weekend. Came in over the weekend. And so, gosh, a lot of effort. And please know that that effort is noticed, appreciated, and developing all the time. And we look forward to supporting your efforts in the future. Congratulations. It's really, really exciting news to see.
And just one thing to add, Mr. West, same question related to Rosie's assessments. Our December was a cumulative benchmark. All the others were individual units. I think what we noticed was that where they have struggles, it kind of ends up averaging together. And you saw the increase at December. And then again, we saw the increase, they spiraled those standards back through. That was kind of the CBA number 5 was across genres and a mini assessment, even though it was a 70 questions long like today, it did address the majority of the readiness standards. So just to mention.
Is there a tool that they give you to where you can upload these and have the AI grade them and see how close our grading is to its grading?
There's really not, but I will say that the way that we've trained our teachers is to kind of be like AI. And we kind of have them trade exams so they're not grading their own students. And of course, it is through DMAC, which is our testing system. We use DMAC, so the questions are typed, the answers are typed in there, and the teachers open it on a screen and do a digital scoring of it, but purely just using the rubric. The rubric identifies some of the things that Rosie talked about, like the particular restating of a question and the words that are the phrases that stand out. What's really important for that is it's also cross-curricular. So there is a short answer response on a biology test, there is a short answer response on a U.S. history test, and those will be scored the same way. So if our students are using the RACE strategy, they have the trigger phrases. Some of it is also about sentence structure, the comma and, they're looking for the complexity. Some of it's about the quotation marks that are in place because they have to have cited evidence, or there's a phrase that says as stated in. We've coached that up with our students because of TSI. We tell the kids for TSI, write 500 words, because AI is making sure you have a full essay. They're gonna look for 500 words. So we said the same thing with our short answer responses. They're gonna look for multiple sentences, 3 to 5 sentences. So some of those triggers are in place, and our teachers do the same thing. We probably score them harder than AI would in that capacity, that if they don't have the 3 to 5 sentences, regardless of how good the answer was, we're not gonna give them that extra score. So I think that probably what we've seen is our teachers scoring a little harder than what they normally would. I appreciate what you mentioned. They're gonna give us the data that they want us to see online, but I will say that initially when short answer responses were first vetted and they came out, the average across the state was 1% of students who got mastery marks, and it got up to like 3%. And we worked so hard, I will never forget the year that we found out in December they took them away. And that's all we had practiced, because that was the place to get the most growth, because those were the points that we were missing. And apparently somebody at TDA had like mistakenly left the date at the bottom of when they had decided it, which was in October, but they never communicated it to us. And so we were so frustrated with that, but what we found was we had gotten kids so dependent on respond to text, that the questions they replaced them with that were multiple choice were questions that say, which of the following text examples should be used to justify blank? So we had really programmed them to really be intentional about selecting the right kind of text. But we had worked so hard on that because it had been the biggest struggle for us. It was really easy for these teachers because Ms. Morrison and I spent that time together as teachers struggling. So when it came back, we were like, oh yeah, these are back, we can do this. And you notice that that's where they have more point values. So the more point value questions are the ones where they're having to do those responses. I think what you're gonna find is when we did it with our cross-curricular students, they struggled because they were used to just like one-word answers, like in a biology class. And then we graded them, and we graded them and gave them all zeros because they didn't have good answers. So then the biology teachers were coaching up some of the same strategies, and they just did it on purpose, because the biology was like, what are y'all doing, how are we gonna do this? And I said, y'all better go talk to the two team. And so then they got the racing strategy, the two teachers at that time, and all of a sudden we had a big lead. It has worked for us for TSI. So I feel like it will work for us for the STAR test, that if we are consistent with that. I will tell you that the key for it is the R for restating, because you're using part of the question to put the answer in. So we push that really hard on the essay, because it's gonna guarantee that you have a sole thesis statement that says, yes, this is a answer that is justified. So taking part of the question, turning it into the answer, and then, you know, there's gonna be variation in what every kid says is their belief about something, but especially because they're so text driven, because now the students are having to construct their responses dependent on text, they have to pull something from the text. Our teachers have helped them with a strategy for reading to identify which text really is what you should be using. A quote is better than a summary, those kinds of things. So I think that hopefully we will see that, but there's not. And so to kind of look out for some of those things, we're watching through Avid, because Avid has shared with us some of the use of AI. We have a recorded webinar because it was during LASSO training that we will share with our staff in May and with our Avid site team, just to kind of how AI is going to impact some of the other things. And like Rosie said, our teachers are seeking it. They want to know the things that are related to AI so that they can continue to evolve in their practice with the changes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I think it's probably crystal clear, the difference between the CPA and the assessment, how all of that is predicted and what's gonna happen on the start. And of course, when you look at these numbers, the goal progress measure for 5.1, the annual targets, you already exceeded some of the annual targets for ninth grade. So the goals are really accomplishing what they set out to accomplish. Thank you for your interpretation, Dr. We appreciate that. So the next thing we have on our LSG agenda is to do a board evaluation. And so I have scored it ahead of time myself, so I'm sure you probably looked over. So if you pull your evaluation form out and you go to Vision and Goals 1, what do you believe you score for Vision and Goals 1? What is it that holds us back from mastering focus?
Probably the same thing as last week. Committed to February.
So anybody have those things?
So just have a workshop where we just come in and memorize.
They'll be delivered to your house. I expect it.
Yeah, and also knowing the current status of each student outcome goal, that's probably pretty challenging as well.
Yeah.
So are we in agreement that it's a 12, that we're at needs focus? Everyone? Okay. That's what you had last quarter as well. So looking at vision and goals 2, when I looked over this earlier, I missed 5.3. I went through all of the goal progress measures and I saw goal progress measure annual target, which if you look at that last number 4 in approaches focus, it says you would have annual student group targets. At 5.3 we don't have. You must have caught that too, because I graded it as a 12 this time. Needs focus, but you don't have that. You're missing that. 5.3. We don't have it.
Isn't that we don't have them, or are they just to get
They're not.
this version?
They're not in here.
That's where we put them.
Yeah.
We put them in the monitoring report, and so they're not here.
But we've never had the annual targets. They wouldn't have changed.
Well, we only started doing that this year,
Okay.
and we were kind of slow getting it all together.
Yeah.
But I'll make sure we're having a planning meeting next Thursday, and it's at 10 o'clock on Thursday morning, not this Thursday, but next Thursday. We're going to make sure that that gets done. But at this point, the highest you can score will be on vision goals two. Do you agree with that?
Notice the high.
Everybody, that's, you agree, you agree. It's your evaluation, but I'm your coach.
Just
So.
tell us.
Okay, so we're gonna work. All right, that's what you were at last time as well. So vision goals 3. Where do you think you score on this one? What is it that keeps you from mastering focus on this? This is for this last 3 months.
Theories of action, that's what I know we have broad community ownership.
You do have a theory of action. You did adopt one when we first started this out.
Oh, we did.
You sure did. And it stayed the same. What about broad community ownership?
Last meeting, we broke through on the broad community.
Yeah, it would be for this last 3 months. Keep in mind, this was the 3-month period where you put it to students. I mean, I'm, what do y'all think?
10.
I'm not gonna argue with you. I have in the past. Right?
It's okay, we need somebody to keep us in check.
Okay, so is everybody agree that we're at
Yes.
10?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know if you were gonna.
You're telling me on 10, no, I'm 10.
We got 10 people, master focus. And let's go to vision and goals 4. The board has adopted superintendent constraint progress measures.
I think we moved it to master class.
Mhm.
The only that haven't kept us out is the community ownership.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, I hope you'll keep making that progress and keep making that effort, you know. But I mean, I think you settled in making efforts towards that over the last few months. So, okay, so we're saying 5 on this one. Okay, let's go to, progress and accountability. 1, the board invested at least half of their time on improving student outcomes. Well, I can tell you, I did the average of the last 3 months. It was 77.85% of the time spent focused on student outcomes.
We were meets last time, we're in the 40s or something, right?
We were 15.
We were 15.
Yeah, you were masters last time.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the time before.
The time before,
The time before was really low.
And then on progress and accountability 2, this is the board evaluates but does not interfere with progress toward improving student outcomes.
Yeah.
Well, what about the very last bullet item on masters? Because when you do your evaluation of the superintendent, it's not exclusively based on student outcomes. So, right from the way that you adopted the superintendent evaluation, you've already said you're not gonna, you're fine losing that 1 point.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Board I work with adopts the same thing. It's, I think, for good reason. When we go to systems and processes, where do you think you fall? Let me give you some figures here. As far as when you get into the approaches focus column, you have to have 75% of your consent eligible items on the agenda, and that can only 75% of them remain. You have 100%. And then when in the needs focus column, where it says 3 hours per meeting, you were at 1.72 hours per meeting. It says an average of 5 other topics per meeting. In the last 3 months, you've averaged 1 other topic per meeting. Everything else has been able to be put on the consent agenda. And so, where do you think you score on this one?
I guess it boils down to, do we get all the materials to vote on these 7 days?
Well, that's a question I don't know the answer to, you would have to answer that. I know they were sent out, you know.
This is the last one, wasn't it, before that,
7 days.
so it's been 7 days, it's the last one.
The last one was not.
Correct.
This
Oh,
meeting,
okay.
For this meeting.
Okay,
but this meeting will be on the next tracker, right?
so,
Or is this
Yeah,
meeting's
for-
on this tracker, right?
no, for
Oh,
this,
it's-
no, we,
Oh,
January,
Previous,
February,
you're right,
March.
you're right.
I would say
So then what
15
we-
this
Yeah.
time, but then we drop next
Got
time.
to 12.
Okay, so 15, we just need to. And then advocacy and engagement,
That included.
last time you were at 9.
Yes, we've done that, we've done,
Woman was received the training,
all right,
display, updated.
I filled mine out wrong. I would say we're at 10, because we've had the communication with students.
Yeah, I would say you are also. And, yeah, I was wondering why you.
Yeah, that was my fault.
The only thing would be, noticing the needs focus column where it says, last bullet, has led or co-led at least one Lone Star, one training on Lone Star residents for the community during the past 6 month period.
We did that online deal. huh?
Yeah, we-
Last 6 months.
Would you consider that a training? Or was that?
I would think so, Tony, because in addition to the meeting, and we put, but we developed more robust training materials online that are there today. And FAQs are there, all of that was a part of pointing out what we're doing, and so that can be seen even now.
You got my attention on it, that's good. So we're gonna say, well, 10. Last time you were at 9. So we got one more, and that is, if you catch it like I did today. This is, synergy and teamwork. Where do you think he's scoring out?
Well, I need to know our attendance, because we've had some, fives,
Yeah, so here's the problem, that January meeting where everybody, you didn't have enough to make a quorum. So when you look at, preparing to focus, down at the bottom, bullet, maintain a quorum throughout all regular schedules for the past 3 months. So, I mean, you couldn't help it, everybody's sick, but you didn't have a quorum, so you had to cancel the meeting. So on that one, I think we have scores.
We rescheduled the meeting.
Yeah.
And we had a quorum at that meeting.
Yeah, I know, we weren't able to have it because, I don't know, what do y'all think?
But it was
all regularly scheduled,
the monthly regularly scheduled meeting or the
I would say,
unregularly scheduled workshop.
That was a.
I would say
regular
maintain a quorum throughout all regularly scheduled.
That's what
I would say
Dwight
that was a regularly scheduled.
It was, that's what Dwight called me, he says, you're not gonna believe this.
We don't have a car.
And I didn't believe it, I was like, what, who are you?
What is
You
happening?
thought it was- Yeah. I mean, it isn't integrity, so I really think we
Well,
probably.
I would have written a sick note, but we weren't here, it was going through us, and it showed up. We may be missing more the next time, I don't know.
So we're at 0.
So when I'm at, that comes up to a 72.
That's why.
Yeah, so the 60 is what keeps you on the leaderboard. And plus your average for your student outcomes, for the last quarter is 77.85% of your reading students. So this is an outstanding, I mean, there's areas to work. When you're sick, right? That's a lot of points that you need to have on that, but still, the goal is to get 60 and stay above 60. And every 3 month period is gonna be a little bit different.
Right.
But you're doing really well. I want to get you a sign that's, you know, I'll upload it to PDA. I don't know why they haven't updated their website with the leaderboard, but I think you guys clearly should be on the leaderboard the last 2 quarters.
Is there a motion to be made to approve LSG?
I'll second that motion.
All right, any further comments, questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
And I just want to say too,
Yes, sir.
again, it's a privilege to get to work with your district and your principals and your leadership team, because you really are staying focused on the right things. I look for great things to happen for kids.
Yes, thank you, Tony. I appreciate all your work. We enjoy being here, and thank you for what you're doing. All right, moving on to our items of business. Item A, announce board member training hours. So I'm going off of, which I think it was sent out. It was a document, an Excel document, and everyone is up to date. The only one that is not compliant is Matt, and it's a family matter that he wasn't able to make the last training, so he's short 2 hours. But other than that, everyone else is compliant with what we need. So, do we need to approve that? Okay, is there a motion to be made?
Make a motion to approve the board member training hours.
All right, is there a second to the motion? Okay. Any more questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. All right, moving on to item B, discussion and take possible action to approve request to transfer from current third-party administrator TPA to a board-approved TPA. Right,
Yes, Jordan Crosskoff is going to join. I just wanted to share, being in the district 19 months now, really appreciated the insightful, thoughtful questions. And today, I feel like we worked throughout the day to make sure that we get all the information. Your questions are very much appreciated. Not only the conversations with you all, internal stakeholders, but also a conversation with external stakeholders found it to be a good conversation. And I could just say I value every bit of feedback I received today. And so we're ready to present some of the positives that we're going to go with. And then once you're done, Jordan, I'll come back with a recommendation and a few summary points here.
Absolutely. So I do appreciate y'all listening today. There's some things that obviously were brought, and so I want to just kind of touch on the positive reflections on what this could help moving forward with the district. I know some of our main things that we talk about whenever we talk about growth is the retention, the retaining of employees and our staff members. I think some of the biggest things that we highlight whenever we are looking at this is what do some of our districts around us offer. That was one of the biggest things is whenever we're sitting and evaluating these different TPA firms is what is Grand Blanc ISD offering, what is High Haven, what is El Campo, because ultimately, if an employee is leaving the district, they're going to go to one of those different other districts, and what kind of benefits are they going to be able to offer. So with this transition, we would be in the same comparison with them. We would be offering the same benefits. So if they were to leave, it would be that the district is offering those benefits along with the additional costs for our medical that we cover, which is much higher than any other district around us. The other piece is the efficiency. I think some of the biggest things that we as a district and as we continue to grow is how can we, the different departments work together. We're continuing to grow as a district. We're continuing to move into new programs like Skyward. What can we do to transition there to be able to do it efficiently, work with the different programs, having programs that work to upload into Skyward, those type of pieces that help support us, along with bill reconciliation and support the district. The next piece is the support. I know there's a lot of times that goes into this in regards to how our employees can be communicated about any sort of benefits. The main thing is the support for open enrollment, being able to support them during that time, the communication that they're going to receive. For conversations with First Financial, the amount of support that will go out on what to look out for, what support is going to be given, that's going to be highlighted on everything, along with additional support that having it through an electronic device, and that was shared during the information that was shared with y'all, that an employee would have an opportunity to see on their phone rather than just having it on the laptop, etc. And then the last piece is the partnership with Region 3. I think that is huge. I know we have a lot of support with Region 3 and what the district is allowed to do. And with us going into this co-op with Region 3, we're going to continue to be able to support with First Financial is the approved TPA for Region 3 and continue to have that partnership with it. We'll continue the growth of the district. So I think that those are important to highlight. I know that there were discussions that were made earlier. I do want to just kind of identify them. There were a few that become conversations in regards to maybe miscommunication. I can share that anytime that us within our departments and here at this office get any sort of communication, we make sure to always return back. There was something stated today that lack of communication and lack of not getting something signed. We did receive that document yesterday, so that was something that I did want to touch on, is that it was a document that we received yesterday. We had not received anything prior to that. There were multiple conversations in regards to trying to get those documents, so I wanted to make sure that that was identified. The next piece is the support while my employee and myself were out. Yes, we did get a lot of support from Allison, and that was great, but we're going to need that support moving forward. And those are things that have always been identified and always shared with the additional support that we have really valued as employees and staff members, that the continued support is what the district needs. And ultimately, it's what our employees need, because what we're here to do is to service our district and to service these employees. They're the ones that come here every day. They're the ones that live and breathe it. They're the ones that are supporting these students. If we don't offer the best benefits for them to continue to grow and to continue to be able to support their families, then what are we doing as a district? So I just wanted to make sure that those things were highlighted and to be able to touch on some things that were on later.
So I'll add to that a little bit. I think it's important to mention, Ms. Crosstoff mentioned efficiency. And for those who don't know, with ESSER going away, that translated into a $2.8 million deficit due to ESSER federal funds going away. And so we're watching every efficiency. And so with this proposal that we bring you today, with 500 plus employees, we feel we will also gain efficiency and be able to provide more for our staff. And so we feel that is a big selling point. It was mentioned that I want to discuss also the timeline for procurement and to secure this agreement. There's a lot of change in the state, as you know it, and we're up against a tight timeline. And so as far as that goes, the tight timeline means we're looking to partner with a group who is within a co-op to facilitate meeting the timeline. And the timeline is not something that's exactly easy for everyone. I understand that, but we need to have a system in place. As you know, we're migrating to Skyward. This recommendation today, we did our homework, and it integrates also. So again, with the efficiency we're picking up, it also integrates with our current software. And we feel overall the efficiency we're going to gain, increased customer service for our many employees, combined with the two co-ops that we're in. There's two of them, and those co-ops are large and larger. There's two of them. So we'll have two opportunities, because some of the other co-ops, some of the other products we looked at were not in the co-op, which would throw us out of the timeline. And these co-ops are very large, which means our expectation is to have our information out there and for more people to be bidding on it, more people to be looking to compete. Of course, we want to compete with our neighboring districts that are already in this system. We are competing for the same teachers, and it is a friendly competition. I have complete respect and appreciation for my neighboring superintendents. And we also feel that this is a way to compete with them. And so today I brought a resolution because I really feel that under the time constraints and integration and all things considered, it would be a detriment if we did not approve this resolution today. So my humble recommendation is that you approve this resolution to give us greater flexibility, efficiency, to better serve our staff.
Do you have any questions?
Lots. No one will first. So as everybody was talking, I kind of wrote down some questions. As a business owner in the community, sometimes involved, I think it's important that we do due diligence to gentlemen who are business owners in the community and support the community. So I want to make sure that we do what's best for our teachers, and so I'll say that is the most important thing. And so in order to get this, it's due diligence. As Tony stated earlier, typically we spend 75% of our meetings on student outcomes, which, as we just saw, the example of how we spend our meetings on student outcomes. And so this isn't student outcomes. I don't feel prepared to vote today. And this was put on the agenda 2 days ago, I think, somebody correct me. I think it was posted on the 14th.
He was supposed to put that.
Yep, and so then I spent 2 hours today trying to catch up and figure out, and now there's a lot of acronyms that I don't understand. And so I'll just start off with, you said the other districts are offering
So,
a lot.
real quick,
What are they offering that we are not getting now? Van Black, Ocampo, and Tide Haven.
so question. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but if you're not comfortable voting tonight, are you proposing that we table the issue and come back to have another meeting?
So
To where
that's,
we can be, to where you can get your questions answered and you can get the information that you're needing.
that's on my list of questions, but can we, is there a timeline? Is it so tight that it's, a comment was made earlier that if we didn't vote on yes on this, that teachers would not have health care.
We will 100% not meet the timeline if we go out for an RFP.
Okay, so the question is, not going up for an RFP, if we table this until say Monday or Tuesday or something like this, can we still meet this timeline if that's where we decide to go? Not saying I want to go the other direction, I'm not saying I want to, but we could. Okay, so
So,
then we could be more prepared.
We could.
Okay,
so,
so I can save all my questions and make a motion that we table this into a future date that still is within the timeline for being able to approve that resolution without losing it.
To be clear, on that timeline, it would have to be someone who was already, we're going to consider anything else other than this, they would have to be in those co-ops.
and that's the only option because we don't have time for an RFP. An RFP takes 60, correct me if I'm wrong, 60, 90 days? It just depends.
Yeah, it depends. You've got to have 2 board meetings and that's okay. But again, no one is a fan of the timeline, I assure you. And there was a lot of change this year and there is change. And so that change drove the timeline. And
I just want to understand all the change, understand all the timelines, understand all the additional benefits, understand everything without putting the teachers at risk. That is, if it came down to right now, I apologize to y'all. If it came down to right now, somebody could affirmatively say that, hey, if you don't vote yes for this, the teachers aren't getting health care. I want to tell you, I'm voting yes on this resolution. But if we can talk about this next week, get all of our questions answered and make an informed decision, it may be Allison Benefit Group, it may be First Financial, but I would feel more comfortable voting, having the information. Because as of now, I would abstain.
So is there a motion on the table?
I did make a motion to table this agenda item until a future date, but not any later than would violate this time.
Okay, so there is a motion on the table. Is there a second to the motion? You're right, whichever. So is there any further questions, comments that need to be clarified? So we are tabling this item of business and understanding that by tabling that, we will be meeting within the next.
The more I looked into it,
Days.
the more I read it, the more questions I had, I didn't have time, you know.
Okay.
But we have to post 72 hours ahead,
Yes.
so we're
So we're
Monday or
looking
Tuesday,
Monday or Tuesday.
we'll find a form.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a motion on the table. Any further questions, comments? All right, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you, ma'am, I appreciate it. All right, moving on to our consent agenda. Is there anything on the consent agenda that anyone would like to remove? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to be made?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented in the agenda.
All right, is there a second to the motion? All right, there's a first and second. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. All right, we're going to move into executive session under personnel matters if necessary may be taken into closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074 to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment duties, discipline, resignation, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, including contract recommendations for campus and district level administrators and teachers. It is 7:32 and we will move into closed session. Discuss and consider approval of hiring discuss and consider approval of hiring of contractual personnel. Is there a motion to be made?
Make the motion to approve the hiring of contractual personnel.
All right, is there a second to the motion?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. All right, the last item on the agenda, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second to the motion?
Aye.
I will be in touch very shortly with trying to get a date early next week, to reconvene. And so please respond when.
Tuesday looks good for me, but I know we have a report, so that's it.
Yeah, so I will, yes,
Budget on that.
so I will be in touch shortly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, any further comments, questions? All in favor of adjournment? Motion, opposed? Sorry. Motion passes 4-0. And it is 8:10 and we will adjourn.